Hi there guys, how are you doing today? Have you learned the art of poodling yet? Well, to help you, we're talking today to Jane Meaker, who's driving the marketing at the world's oldest topiary gardens, which is at Levens Hall Gardens in Cumbria, who've had a very inspired idea of founding World Topiary Day to share the love of topiary around the globe. My second guest is another Jane. Well, you don't have to be called Jane to be on this show, but it certainly helps. But this is Jane Hasell-McCosh, owner of Dalemain Mansion Gardens, also in Cumbria, which has a very exciting piece of topiary to share with us. So are you ready for the interesting, pardon the pun, clips? Okay, hold on to your hats. Here we go. Let's go poodling. Good morning, Jane. First of all,
hello.
Just so we can put this in context for listeners, can you tell us where Levens Hall Gardens is, please?
Yes, of course. So we're located just 2 miles south of Kendal in Cumbria, just off junction 36 of the M6.
Oh, that sounds handy. So literally you can just drive a few minutes from the motorway and can arrive at Levens Hall.
Absolutely.
Oh,
that's right. We're literally 5 minutes off the motorway and it's all well signposted. So we're very, very easy to find.
Okay. And how long have you been on the landscape there?
Well, Levens Hall has been, there's been a building on site since 1250 when there was originally an appeal tower was built by the de Redmond family. In the 1570s, this building was extended and turned into a rather grim and medieval structure, from a grim and medieval structure into a gentleman's residence by the Bellingham family. Then when Colonel Graham, James Graham, acquired the building in 1689, the south wing and the brew house were added. The newest addition to the site is Levens Kitchen, which was actually built in 2019 by the current owners. So there's always been some sort of development at Levens Hall.
Oh, all right. So you've got contemporary bits as well as ancient bits.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes.
But it's not just a hall, is it? You've got gardens, and as part of your gardens, I believe you've got the world's oldest topiary garden, which dates from 1694, if I've got my history right anyway, and that's in the reign of William and Mary. So is that right? And who planted and laid out the garden?
Yes, that is right. The topiary gardens themselves were designed and laid out by a Frenchman by the name of Monsieur Guillaume Beaumont. He was actually head gardener to James II, who was the king, obviously, before William and Mary. The gardens themselves actually date from 1694. They very much reflect the style of the times. It was very strict, formal in design, very much straight lines, trimmed hedges and clipped trees. Pretty much as you see it today, really.
All right, so not much has changed, but topiary is all about shapes, isn't it? So could you tell us a little bit about the shapes we can see in your gardens? Is it geometric shapes? Are there other things?
It's not surprising that some of the trees here have acquired names over the years. Some of them are very obvious shapes. For example, the great umbrella tree. There's also some less obvious shapes. There's one of them is referred to as Queen Elizabeth. It's a rather portly figure of a very small, fat, dumpy lady with a billowing dress and big puffy sleeves. If you look at the bush from a certain direction, it's very clear. You can see her outline very clearly. She's actually accompanied by her 4 maids of honour as well. There's also a topiary tree that looks like a jug of Morocco ale. And there's also 4 peacocks as well. Some of the topiary has taken on a modern twist, despite the fact that it's 350 years old. You can make out Homer Simpson, a minion, and even Darth Vader. So with a bit of imagination, you can see all sorts of shapes within the topiary. But there are also geometric shapes as well. I particularly love the sharp pyramid shapes. It's a very distinct shape within the garden. There's also a very impressive corkscrew-shaped bush and a cake stand, and even a slightly tipped-over wedding cake. So precision clipping at its finest here. And our head gardener, Chris Crowder, he's been doing the job for over 30 years now. So he's obviously very well practiced.
Yeah, so he obviously loves what he's doing as well.
Oh, most definitely.
Oh, great stuff. So all of this now leads me to what is pretty exciting news for you, which is an event that you founded and which is called World Topiary Day. When is that?
Yes, we're really excited about this. The inaugural event is going to be held on Wednesday, the 12th of May. So we're really, really looking forward to it. It's going to be a big day in our calendar.
Yeah, and I guess this is due to the fact that you've got the world's oldest topiary garden and you're trying to just sort of build on that, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. The date itself is actually a very significant date within the history of Levens Hall. Edward I actually granted a charter to the nearby village of Milnthorpe, allowing it to hold an annual fair from the late 13th century. And Milnthorpe Fair actually took place on the 12th of May, and it became a very popular event indeed. By the time Colonel Graham resided at Levens Hall, it was very well established. There'd been a lot of rivalry between a neighbouring Dalemain Tower, and Colonel Graham was so irked by the lavish entertainment that was offered at the end of the fair by neighbouring Dalemain Tower, that the following year he decided that he was going to invite all the dignitaries back to Levens Hall instead. And so successful was Colonel Graham's male-only sports on the lawn and drinking of the highly spiced Morocco ale that the dignitaries returned to Levens Hall year after year. It became a very popular event and actually became a ticketed event, no less. As I say, it became very a riotous occasion. So unfortunately, it did actually die out. So we're feeling very excited about the possibility of reintroducing the event. So yes, that event was actually known as the Radish Feast. And the reason for that was that huge amounts of radishes that were grown on the estate were consumed by the partygoers, along with something called heather bread, which is a thin, crisp oat cake. And they were the partygoers were actually challenged to drink a constable, which is a large, tall glass, almost like sort of like a very large wine glass. And they were challenged to drink a glass of the highly potent Morocco ale while standing on one leg, and then undertaking the challenge of walking across the bowling green in a straight line. And so the potent Morocco ale, coupled with the radishes, made for making this a very impossible task.
Well, they really knew how to party in those days, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's happening on World Topiary Day at Levens Hall?
Well, we'll be marking this special day in various ways. Chris Crowder, our head gardener, will be running some talking topiary tours throughout the day. Basically, it'll be a potted history of the gardens, but focusing mainly on the fantastic topiary that we have here. We'll also be having some children's quizzes, although I'm sure quite a few adults will enjoy doing them too. We'll also be having some topiary-themed food in Leven's kitchen. So plenty to be enjoyed on the day. The shop itself will have some lovely topiary-themed or garden-themed gifts. We've got all sorts of things from tea towels, mugs and toiletries to gardening equipment, books, and of course the delicious Morocco ale and clipped bush beer.
Sounds very interesting. So how else can people get involved? Are there other ways to get involved with World Topiary Day?
Oh, yes, definitely. So first and foremost, we would obviously welcome everyone to visit Levens Hall and Gardens and to join in the activities that we're going to have on site. Come along and soak up the atmosphere. It's an amazing garden, very much a real life Alice in Wonderland place, and it's quite breathtaking when you see it for the first time. There's no grand entrance to the garden, just a small gate at the side of the house, which will surprise a lot of people. But you go through the little gate and the view before you is incredible. There are plenty of seats throughout the topiary gardens and indeed the rest of the gardens. So it's lovely to be able to just sit and contemplate, take a moment to let your mind wander. We're also encouraging people to create their own topiary. It does take time and patience, but it's definitely worth the effort. if that's not for you, then there are plenty of great artificial topiary trees available nowadays. We'd also love to see people creating their own topiary, and hopefully they'll share it with us on social media. We'd love to see your creations, and if you use the hashtag World Topiary Day, we'll be able to share all these fantastic images.
Yeah, fantastic.
Even if you aren't green fingered, topiary still offers an opportunity to let your imagination go wild, let your mind wander. So we're encouraging people to tell us with which hero or historical figure they create in topiary and why. World Topiary Day is also the National Limerick Day. So we'd love to hear your limericks about topiary. Again, they can be shared on social media using the hashtag World Topiary Day. A great opportunity to get children involved too, whether that's just your own children or if you're a teacher, get your class involved. Perhaps get your children working on a story or two about the day the topiary piece in the garden came to life. I'm sure the possibilities are endless with the adventures.
It all sounds really interesting. I think that's something everybody should get involved with. And I'll let you into a secret. I'm actually getting some topiary delivered today. It's artificial, but
it still counts.
Indeed. So I can imagine that, if he's been there like 30 plus years, your gardener must be really excited about what's going on.
Yes, definitely. He's quite rightly very proud of this garden. 30 years, obviously, it's a long time in anybody's working life. And not surprisingly, he's become very familiar with all the topiary pieces. They take the best part of 5 or 6 months each year to clip all of the trees that we have on site. And he's actually only the 10th head gardener since Guillaume Beaumont. So there's also a huge sense of privilege looking after these world famous gardens too.
Yeah.
In 30 years, Chris has actually added to the gardens, creating his own topiary pieces, and he's nurtured some of them from tiny saplings. So yes,
lovely, yeah. That must be a real sense of pride when you see that sort of come to life after so many years. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
It'll be his event, won't it?
Yeah.
And hopefully it's going to be an event that's going to, if you pardon the pun, it's going to grow over the coming years, isn't it?
Yeah, we very much hope so. This garden has an amazing history. It's not a static environment, continues to grow and change over time. So whenever you visit, you'll always see something different here. The borders around the topiary are absolutely beautiful, full of colour. We actually produce 30,000 bedding plants each year. They're grown on site, and they're planted around the topiary. So the colour is quite spectacular. And that's before you've even thought about looking at the various borders, the colourful borders that we have as well. And visitors love to see the gardeners at work too. It's very much a work in progress, and I guess it always will be.
And I guess this event will actually raise the interest in the topiary garden like throughout the rest of this year as well. I mean, do the seasons change in the garden?
Yes. The gardens are open annually from April until October. And no matter when you visit, you'll always notice something different. It's a sort of garden that you can visit time and time and again and continue to get a huge amount of enjoyment out of it. The topiary is a beautiful art form, but one that's very much underrated. And garden fashions has changed over the years. Many formal gardens like Levens Hall were removed and replaced with more natural landscapes. But the topiary at Levens Hall remains. It does change subtly over time as they are carefully clipped and trimmed into shape. But the original concept is still going strong.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about this. It must be amazing when it's got snow on the topiary, because I can imagine shapes are then just sort of coated in a blanket of, like a little coat that they've got on.
Yeah, it's absolutely stunning. I mean, it changes from day to day, depending on the weather, from season to season, even from year to year. And I have to say, there's nothing better than a quick walk around the topiary on a frosty winter's morning before coming into the office, or wandering around at lunchtime and just soaking up the summer sun. taking photos of the garden for social media and marketing purposes. The topiary in particular is definitely one of the perks of my job. During the winter months, we've even seen the gardens get flooded too. So seeing the garden underwater is obviously awful, but we have to work with nature, and the gardens have an amazing resilience and soon bounce back. It's an amazing place, that's for sure.
And I'm guessing that, they must offer also quite a lot of mindfulness opportunities for those who want to sit quietly, reimagining the shapes, letting creative thoughts flow. And I guess in this year, that's what we perhaps need.
Yes, it's definitely a very giving garden. No matter how many times you see it, still manages to take your breath away. It's got an uncanny knack of diverting your mind off your own troubles and seems to give your mind some space, some peace. It's a great place if you're wanting some peace and quiet to get away from the stresses of the day-to-day life. There are seats located throughout the gardens, and it's just wonderful to be able to sit and just admire the view and let your mind wander and soak up the atmosphere. Very special place.
So if it's a little bit chilly or people, feeling a bit peckish while they're there, have you got somewhere they can go for a cuppa or a bite to eat?
Absolutely. You definitely shouldn't visit Levens Hall without going to Levens Kitchen. It's got a great seasonally inspired menu. A lot of the produce is sourced from the gardens itself. We have some quite spectacular vegetable gardens, vegetable borders. So, and some of it comes from the wider estate as well. So the menu changes on a regular basis. We also have the most delicious cakes too, and I should know because I've tested most of them. It's a hard life, but somebody's got to do it.
So another perk of the job there.
Absolutely. In fact, our donuts have gathered rather a reputation, so one definitely not to be missed. But we've got something to suit all appetites, even if you're just wanting a hot drink or anything through to a full tasty meal, a hot tasty meal. So there's definitely something for everybody, and ice creams for the children as well.
Oh, fantastic. Well, it sounds marvellous. So just remind us again when World Topiary Day is, because that sounds like a day to really head there.
Yeah. It's Wednesday, the 12th of May this year. We're really excited about it, and we just can't wait to welcome all of our visitors to the gardens.
Yeah, well, let's hope lots of people turn up and take advantage of the opportunity to see these magnificent gardens. I'm sure they'll have a great time if they do. So thank you very much for talking to us, Jane.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
Now, this is very exciting because I'm now going to be joined by Jane Hasell-McCosh, the owner of Dalemain. Are you there, Jane?
I am indeed.
Hello. First of all, why don't you tell us a little bit about Dalemain?
Yes, well, I'd love to. Dalemain is such a glorious, gorgeous mishmash of wonderful building from right back to Norman times. And it's a lovely old country house, which my husband's family have lived in for over 300 years. And as a result, all the things that have gone on here have a wonderful continuity. So it's not just the house and the bits that have been added on over the centuries, but also the garden. So it's incredibly exciting when I first came here to realize that the history spanned right through every sort of room and right up into the garden and beyond.
How amazing. Yes, that sounds brilliant. And how long have you lived there?
So we've been married now for 40 years. We celebrated our Ruby wedding in lockdown last year.
Congratulations.
And we have 3 children who have grown up here and who love Dalemain as much as we do. And my son is helping me with the garden. And so that is extremely exciting and also extraordinarily interesting, because I think people with a different eye can add to what you've been doing and develop things in different ways. And that's been very exciting.
And it's always nice to share something with the family as well, isn't it? And get them involved with things that you love as well.
I agree. And meanwhile, my eldest daughter has been growing a lot. She's much more interested in vegetables. So she's been growing. Last year, she had such a success with her seeds that she had something like 97 tomato plants. So we made a lot of green tomato chutney last year.
Oh,
But it is fun. And I think that the way the garden has evolved during my time here is very much to do with how it has grown as a family garden and all the things that we've done in it.
Yes, oh, that's lovely. Now, we've been talking about World Topiary Day to one of our other interviewees, which is on May the 12th. And I believe that your gardens at Dalemain also have a rather special bit of topiary. Could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
I love the idea of World Topiary Day. It's a brilliant idea. And we do have a very special bit of topiary. It's a very ancient piece of box, which for years and years and years, when I first came here, was just a great big mound. And it grew very happily in the shade underneath a big beech tree. But when my children were small, we always used to pretend that it was actually a sleeping dragon. And then a miracle happened because we had somebody who came to work here. He said, well, I think I can actually start to make him into that dragon. And really, in considerably short time, perhaps a week, he chopped away this, there, and everywhere and created a wonderful sleeping dragon with a very big head and quite a small but very lovely sort of twirly body with the triangles on the top of it and great big paws.
Oh, wow.
And it was like a sort of miracle. And I do believe that, you know how sculptors say that they're given a block of stone and they can see that it's actually an elephant or a horse or whatever they can see. And I feel that probably that dragon has always been there, even if it wasn't actually cut into shape.
Yes, so the kind of world of make-believe just came to life because I suppose a little bit by chance, because you found somebody with that vision.
Exactly. And what I've been truly blessed with is that since then, over the years, successive people have been able to cut the dragon and with the hedge trimmer and do it absolutely beautifully. And each year I think, well, this is, marvelous because we rediscover him. He gets quite sort of hairy over the year with with the box growing, and then you cut it back and there he is, smart as ever. For the summer, which is wonderful. The other lovely thing is, because he's so ancient, if you go creep round behind, and I sometimes say this to children, you can get inside the dragon's tummy even, because he's got lovely sort of branches that you can climb onto in behind. And that also makes him rather interesting. But he is asleep, so he's very safe. Nobody's going to get eaten or burnt by him.
Oh, just as well if the children are running around. But I expect they must love that. Absolutely, going into his tummy, being able to get up close to the dragon. It must really bring their whole experience to life when they visit.
I think it is lovely. And I think it actually appeals to people of all ages. I don't think it's just children. I think people love this sort of imaginary beast that is sitting quietly biding its time and not quite awake, but maybe could be prodded into life, given half a chance. It's a wonderful thing.
Yes, maybe one day he will.
It's alongside. We do, it's a magical garden because it has a little Wendy house at one end. It has lots of little paths for children to explore, so they can get behind the dragon, they can go off down the other way. And we also have a sleeping giant made not of box, but of earth. So I suspect that's not really topiary.
No, but I expect that's another great thing to sort of sit alongside it. Does it take a lot to keep him in shape, sort of trim?
No, we do have to give him a sort of haircut once a year. And so that happens, I think it's before Derby Day that you're meant to cut box. And so we do have a go at him then. And there's one plan to actually, somebody said, well, why don't you have a smoke machine and let him have a little bit of smoke coming out of his nostrils? And so we were going to perhaps have a special dragon day where he could perhaps look as if he might be a little bit more alive than normal.
Well, that would be a great thing to sort of follow on from World Topiary Day, wouldn't it?
It would, yes, on Dragon Day.
Yes. So, will you be sharing pictures of your dragon on your social media on World Topiary Day?
Yes, we would love to do that. I think it's such a marvellous idea because topiary is such an ancient art, and it's just extraordinary what people can create out of all sorts of things. And I think taming nature and yet knowing that nature is really in charge is a very interesting concept. But it is very beautiful.
And it's timeless. It's just something that appeals to all generations, isn't it? And doesn't seem to fade from favour, I guess, throughout the generations. It's always with us. And I think it seems to be becoming more popular than ever now. Even if it's artificial, people seem to want to have it around their homes these days.
I think that's true. And I feel very lucky at Dalemain because we have a very ancient garden. So there are a lot of shrubs and bushes and trees, which are very old. And so something like this dragon was sitting there waiting to happen in a way. I wasn't trying to grow a shrub or a grow box in order to create this. This was actually there, which is incredibly lucky for me that we can have these wonderful ideas. And actually there are shrubs and bushes which can be created and topiarized accordingly.
And does he have a name, this dragon?
That's an interesting question. He doesn't have a name. Perhaps we should have a competition for that too, because he's just called the dragon. I have to say that we took some very interested people in topiary down to the low garden. And the man's wife said, turn around, look, what can you see? What can you see? And she was very excited about the dragon. So he turned around and he said, a hippopotamus. And so some people don't see the dragon's tail, so they can't quite see that he is a dragon. But actually, when you get up close, you can see that he's a very beautiful dragon.
And I expect he's been a lonely dragon during lockdown. I expect he missed people coming.
This is true. And I think the Dalemain Garden has been very empty and lonely without people. I think it thrives on people coming and enjoying it. And what we have noticed is that we've put in many more seats and people just love to come. Even on a cold day like today, they will be sitting quietly, peacefully in the garden. You know, in the low garden where the dragon is, we've got Dacre Beck. And that's just the most beautiful sound of running water along beside the dragon. And I think people have discovered that Dalemain is very close to this very natural sort of effect that looking out of the garden, you can look up to the fells, which are so beautiful. It's a very powerful experience. And that's what I think we're aiming to try and achieve. We want people to really enjoy being here and spending time here. And as for today, being so cold, they can always go and get a lovely takeaway cup of coffee or tea, and that will warm them up again, or a homemade soup. So that I think that is the aim. We want people to spend time here and enjoy it.
Yes, because I think people want time for a bit of contemplation and mindfulness after what's happened, don't they? And I think gardens are the perfect place for that to happen. So, yeah, hopefully they can find that kind of spiritual moment in the gardens wherever they go. Have you got anything new for this season that we can see?
Yes, I mean, we've been very busy sort of planning, and George and I, my son, have been creating terraces up on the top lawn, which was a fairly ordinary, straightforward slope. And we've created 4 terraces, and each one will have its own particular character. And so the top one has been made into a black and white garden. So all the flowers are either black or white. And sometimes the foliage is black. So Ophiopogum, that sort of grass, is very dark black, which is wonderful. We've got black bamboo, and we're hoping that white sweet peas will grow up it. So it's going to be quite fun. And it's got a lot of limestone there, which dates back to a rock garden, which was made in the 1900s. And we found a photograph of it in a different place. So we salvaged the stone and created this extraordinary effect up at the top, which I think people will enjoy as they see all these different plants coming up, and it'll give people surprises. There are obvious things like the violas, the Molly Sanderson, that lovely black viola, but then there are more unusual things, like I've got that very pretty but extraordinary white hosta, which is totally white, and you can't imagine how could it live without any chlorophyll in it, but all this kind of thing. So it's a lot of contrast. And I think it'll be fun, and we'll add to it as the years go on.
Yeah, it sounds very different. And I think monochrome is always popular, isn't it, in all sorts of things, fashion and furniture. So why not in gardens?
Why not in gardens?
But
Yes.
I guess that'll be a big contrast to your famous blue Himalayan poppies. They must
Yes,
be
which
on their way
I
soon.
have to say, sorry, I have to say the blue poppies are looking very healthy. They had a very quiet time last year. They've been flooded through the winter because the Dacre flooded, but they've survived to tell the tale, and they're looking really in very good shape for this year. I always think this time of year, just their leaves are coming up, and they look like little rabbit's ears. They're sort of all fluffy and rather attractive. But they're growing well, and so by the end of May, we'll have a beautiful show of the Dalemain Mecanopsis, which is perfect.
And I believe people can buy plants to take home, can't they?
They can, and we're actually just developing that. We were just talking about it today, and they're all plants that we've grown in the garden and potted up. And so anybody living locally will know that there'll be plants that will survive our climate and all our rain and everything else. And we have a lot of blue poppies as well, which are very difficult to get hold of, the Dalemain Mecanopsis. And so we've got a lot of those for sale too.
Well, I absolutely love poppies, so I think I'll have to be popping along rather than fun. Thank you very much for telling us all about that, Jane. That's really interesting. I hope lots of people will come and see the dragon, and hopefully we can get a name for him as well.
Thank you. That would be fun.
Thank you very much once again. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Well, guys, that wraps up this podcast. So over to you to take up the inspiration you've been given. In the meantime, life really is better when you've learned the art of poodling. So keep poodling around, and I'll see you soon.